The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the ACM SIGUCCS webinar, The I in Team, How Developing Individual Strength Builds a Great Team. I am so excited to be joined today by Tom Wilk. I saw Tom's presentation at the SIGUCCS conference in 2018 in Orlando, and we are thrilled that he agreed to do a new version of his presentation for all of you today. I'm going to click forward. Let's see if I can do this. There we go. Some reminders. By default, you are all muted, and the session is being recorded. Next week, I'll put out notifications on our social media, but this will be available on our SIGUCCS YouTube channel next week. If you would like to ask a question during Tom's presentation, you can do so in the questions section or in the chat window, although I find more people use the questions section. Excuse me. And you also can raise your hand if you have a microphone today and you would like me to unmute you. So just so I make sure you all are hearing my voice, could you please say either hello to me in the chat or raise your hand? Okay. I am not seeing the questions. Oh, there they are. Okay. Well, thank you. The SIGUCCS annual conference is moving right along with planning. The call for proposals closes next week. I submitted my presentations yesterday. I hope that all of you had a time, have had a chance to submit your proposals as well. Registration will be open in May. There are new things being added to the website continually, including hotel information will be coming very soon. And you're going to start to see some information about our keynote speakers. So stay tuned to that website for more information about the conference. If you were with us last month, you know that we have started a very informal book club. We're finishing up our February book, which was Atomic Habits. Our March book is the original, Getting Things Done by David Allen. We will start reading it next week, and the discussion will happen the week of March 25th. We have new moderators this month, which I'm really looking forward to hearing from them and their opinions about the book. We also have picked our April book, which is EQ Applied. And if you want more information about what we're doing, or if you want to nominate a book, our website has information about it. The SIGUCCS Awards, the process will be starting soon. Nominations will be accepted for the Penny Crane Award for Distinguished Service, our Hall of Fame Awards, and the Communication Awards. These are a great opportunity to recognize people in our community. You can nominate yourself or your school for a communication award. One of the things that I really like about our communication award process is even if you aren't the first place recipient, you do get feedback about what you submitted. And quite honestly, I used that feedback to make our self-help documents better and better. And last year, I got an award of excellence, which is proudly hanging on my wall. Our webinar series, we have things scheduled through July. And so more information about these can be found on our website. We usually announce all of the details about a webinar early in the month, so it gives you a couple weeks to sign up for it, but this is just a little bit of a teaser to see what's coming through July. Remember, joining SIGUCCS is inexpensive, $25 a year, and has some great benefits. Big conference discounts, also pre-conference seminar discounts, access to the ACM Digital Library, which is a repository of all of the papers that have been published by SIGUCCS, and the SIGUCCS mentoring program. And you can stay in touch with us. I should update this slide to include Slack. We have been enjoying some lively conversations on Slack lately. We have scheduled things like our book club meets in a Slack channel. We have a productivity channel, which I personally love. That's an active channel that talks about productivity. Obviously, we have a conference channel where you can ask questions about the conference. And even the general channel has been pretty busy lately. We have about 40 active people in the community, and I mean, everyone's great. It's really nice to hang out together. So that's it for me. I'm going to turn it over to Tom so we can get to what you're here for. Tom, are you ready for me to make you presenter?
I am. I believe so.
Okay, so here it comes.
Are you seeing my main slide?
I am.
All right.
I am. So I'm going to mute myself so that I don't talk over you accidentally. And take it away, Tom.
Well, thank you, Lori. Thank you, everybody. Welcome. Good afternoon. As Lori said, my name is Tom Wilk, and I am the PC Engineering Manager at Carnegie Mellon University for the School of Computer Science. Long title. I've had longer, actually, but we'll go with that. Today's webinar is based on my 2018 SIGUCCS conference presentation, the I in Team, and basically it focuses on how to develop individuals to build a great team. Let me see if I can make sure I can advance my slides. All right, so today I'm going to cover the things that I have on the slide here, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, introduce my performance management style, discuss some leadership and responsibilities, tell you about types of employee classifications that I've come up with, talk about how I build teams, share some tools and some tips, and hopefully have time for some questions. But please do not wait to ask for the questions at the end. You can chime in anytime. So I want to start out by telling you a little bit about where I've come from, so you'll have an idea of how I've come across the diversity of experience that I have. Well, I've floated around like the feather in Forrest Gump. It's given me a broad perspective of different industries, from corporate to small business to government, contractor, and now higher education. I've worked in areas such as accounting, IT operations, networking, desktop support, help desk, data center operations, and finally my favorite, my passion, is leadership. All of this experience has been like a long case study for me in leadership, and for today's topic specifically on performance management. All right, enough about me. Let's get on with what this presentation's for. Well, today's webinar is around performance management. It really starts with great leadership. If you take a look at this slide, these are the things that are really important to me around leadership. And some of these things, the things that are really important to me is like being motivated to be a great leader. Being a great leader can be very exhausting. You have to be motivated to do it. You have to have passion to help others, and you need to mean it too, not just say that you have passion for this, but you really need to mean it and show people. One of the things that the founder of my university, Andrew Carnegie, one of his sayings was that your heart has to be in the work, and it truly does for leadership. Your heart really has to be in this. Many of you online today are leaders. Some of you have direct reports, others maybe manage projects, technology, or other things, and you're still leaders, right? And just about everyone reports to someone, right? Your title may be team lead, supervisor, manager, whatever. But the question is that I have for leaders is, how did you learn to do your job? Most people have gone through some sort of training to do their job. For most jobs, there's a job description people can refer to that have defined roles, tasks, skills needed. But for leadership, it's not often quite that simple. And for me, it was a lot of trial and error and struggling to get it right to become at least a decent leader, if not a great leader. So why is it that team leads, managers, supervisors, whatever you want to call us, why is it that we seldom get the proper training to become great leaders? One of the biggest reasons, time. People above us usually don't have the time to train us to be a leader. We're all busy doing our day job and not necessarily have time to train others to become great leaders. Another reason is many current leaders lack the skills to teach others to be great leaders. They may be great leaders themselves, but they don't necessarily know how to translate that into coaching and teaching. Some leaders just flat out don't have the skill set themselves. They're probably maybe not even good leaders, so it's hard to teach what you don't know yourself. And very seldom there's an onboarding process for leaders. It's not like knowledge management like we have in place for processes and procedures for technology folks, like say help desks and desktop support. It doesn't always exist for leadership. So this is a picture. I was sharing this with some of the people I work with this morning, and they were laughing. This is a picture of me when I first got into a leadership role. So it was many, many moons ago. If you saw me at conference, this is definitely many moons ago. And while only being in the field of IT for no more than a year, I was approached by my management to say that they told me I had great leadership qualities. I thought to myself, what does that mean? I had no clue what that meant. I was just this young guy getting into the IT field. So I had been doing the job. So I basically, when they put me into a supervisory role, I basically made sure that my people did what they were supposed to do. And if they didn't, I did it myself. No one taught me how to do the job of supervisor. I had no guidance, no mentorship, no training. So I decided to start developing methods and processes for myself that would help me become a better leader. And after I started to get what I thought was right, I decided that I would share my knowledge and experience with others. So I hope today that this is what I do. I share with everybody something that you can get out of this. So the question is, how long does it take to become a great leader? The real answer is it's a never-ending process. And for those of us in the higher education community, I believe we call that lifelong learning, right? And you might ask why would I say it's a never-ending process. In our world, in leadership, it's because of change. Times change, people change, jobs change, technology changes. There are so many things in life that affect the way we view and do things that a leader must always be willing and able to adapt. And that's absolutely true about leadership. Always embrace change as a leader. So as good as Siri and Google Maps may be, they can't get you to this destination. Whether you're a team lead, manager, director, C-level, you always need to have mentors. And I did say mentors as in plural. And while I do mentor people all the time for leadership, I myself have several mentors that help me improve. And not all of them are higher levels than me, quite frankly. I have one particular that is in the organization, is in a lower level than me. One's a peer, but I do have multiple. And ironically, SIGUCCS has a great program for that. Just putting a plug in for SIGUCCS. I've been fortunate to be part of the SIGUCCS mentoring program for 3 years, going on 3 years now. But one thing I want to point out about this is that you need to make sure that you practice what you learn from your mentors and from coaching. You need to be willing to learn new skills and techniques and practice what you learn. You need to take what you learn and adapt them to your leadership style. You also need to make sure that they work in your environment. What works for one organization may not be a cultural fit for others, as I found out going from corporate to government to higher education. You need to apply these skills and techniques to your situation. And then, as I said before, you need to learn to adapt. An important step here, though, is also to self-evaluate. Make sure that what you tried is effective and well received so that you know that it's working and you don't have to go back and adapt. Don't be afraid of criticism either. And even if you think it's not so constructive criticism, it really still is constructive criticism. Sometimes you'll do things that may really upset an individual or a group of people, and you need to do, the next step is to rinse and repeat, start over and evaluate and learn to adapt your skills. So there are many different types of leadership styles, branching from the three well-known autocratic, democratic, and laissez-faire to many others. What you really should start to do is find out what your primary leadership style is. And there are many websites and tools available for you to figure out what your leadership style is. And from there, you can build on this by adapting characteristics from other styles to help enhance yours. And a good leader can and should employ many of these styles in combination to become a great leader. And believe it or not, there are even times when being a micromanager is effective and even necessary. And I'll tell you a little about that a little later and how that happened to me. So I decided that since I was going to give this presentation to a bunch of higher education folks, that I wanted to start off with a definition. I did what any good IT person do. I went to the internet and grabbed a definition from the internet, which is always a great thing to do, right, for research. But this definition came from dictionary.com, and I really liked it. It's the definition of manager. I did one for leader, but for manager. And it says it's a person who has control or direction of an institution, a person who controls and manipulates resources and expenditures. Notice that it says a person who has control or who controls and manipulates. Phonetically, to me, that looks like man is jerk. I really don't want to be that kind of a leader where I'm controlling and manipulating people. That might work for that last definition of resources and expenditures, but when you're dealing with people, that's not really the way I found to be very effective. So I decided to look up leader, and the definition for leader was a person who leads, guides, or directs. Now this I found has worked a lot better for me in my environment when I decided to start guiding and coaching and mentoring people. So building a team requires, as I mentioned before, a leader to be of an adaptive nature, who can quickly and effectively use different styles in different situations or as conditions change. So one area where leaders need to have a deep playbook and a diverse set of tools in order to be successful is that of performance management. In order to be an effective, if not great leader, you need to better understand people as the individual person and not just as a resource to do a job. Developing individuals helps build a great team. So performance management, in my eyes, is an art as well as a science. Some people use methods, processes, and procedures, the science part, while others understand the people component, the psychology, the relationships, the art part. Yet many fail to find the right formula that harnesses the balance of both of these. In the context of one's staff or team, this means helping them understand what they need, where they need to go, and who they really want to be. From defining success to providing guidance and mentoring to career development, leaders need to be able to help their teams succeed. Now, the key here is to help them. Don't do it for them. Don't be that micromanager, but don't let them go it alone. Don't be the hands-off person either. You need to help them throughout their career. Success can be defined in many ways, but to me, without a compass for guidance, many people just wander aimlessly throughout their career. It's kind of how I chose to do the first half of my career. I kind of wandered aimlessly through. Managers often deal with employees that lack skill, others that just struggle day to day. And every once in a while, you get a rock star, someone who really works hard at their job and tries to be the best they can. But a leader's job is to help guide them no matter where they are in their career, whether they're that struggling employee or that rock star. And talk a little bit more about that. So today I wanted to share my journey. As I mentioned earlier, it's sort of a case study on leadership and performance management and how I learned the hard and long way to help people in their career journey. So I'm going to talk about three main types of employees as I define them, and that is the struggler, the average Joe, and the rock star, and how each one of these type of employees taught me to be a better leader. Struggling employees come in a variety of types, and I've encountered several types and all with individual challenges of a unique nature. So we're going to look at how I dealt with some of them and how I approach them now and engage with them now to help them. And the first type of struggling employee that I've dealt with was someone who lacked skill. And I'll be more specific. This was someone that really just couldn't do their job. This person had become quite adept at hiding things from previous managers because there was no ticketing system, there were no metrics, there were no measured output. So when I took over, I put all of these things into place and quickly found the problem. Everyone seemed to know that there was a problem, but they all had attributed blame to the wrong person. So I started assigning tickets, measuring output, and it was evident immediately who was actually the failing employee. After several months of collecting data from the tickets assigned, I determined there was a skill problem, but there was really more to it. This person was actively working to hide this from me as well as from previous managers, and the rest of the team had been helping complete tickets for things this person couldn't resolve and that apparently didn't possess the know-how. The approach I took was to confront this person in a one-on-one meeting, and I told the employee that improvement was absolutely necessary to keep their job. The problem was I did not give this employee specific things to work on other than you need to get better. After working with this person for another year, it ended in a termination. Documentation had been compiled during the whole process, so when we had to go to court 4 times, we won each time. But let me tell you, going to court is a tedious and expensive process, even if you win. Not to mention, it takes away from your job of minding your team and work. Also, I felt absolutely horrible at the prospect of the eventuality of being forced to fire someone. It was my first time, and I felt that I just wrecked their life. Because I said they really didn't have the skill to do the job. And they had been doing this job, by the way, for over 20 years. So fast forward a few years ago in a different organization where I ran across a similar situation, but this time it was a lack of will problem. I was determined not to repeat the same experience of terminating somebody if I could avoid it. Fortunately, I had an awesome human resources representative that guided me through a better solution. This is where I learned about SMART goals. I know many of you probably know what they are, but just for the benefit of everybody online, I'll briefly define it. SMART is an acronym that represents a method for helping you create goals that are effective. Goals need to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And that last example I gave you, I did none of those. So my first attempt to create SMART goals this time was not great. I didn't have specific goals, and the ones I could come up with, they were really not measurable. So after meeting with my human resources representative several times, this was corrected, and I was on my way to better understanding performance management. The employee who was failing met with me to discuss the situation. We talked about the performance improvement plan that was designed to help them and focus on improvement, not attacking or negativity, but improvement. It had very specific goals, it meeting all of the SMART requirements. But this time I added specific expectations within established time periods. We were to meet once per week to discuss progress, distractions, roadblocks, anything else that my employee thought would hinder their success. Now the key here was I put a 60-day time period to this plan, but here's the funny part. The week prior to the 60th day, I met with them to discuss the plan and found that almost nothing on the plan had even been started. No, I wasn't surprised. We'd been meeting every week after all, and this was no surprise to me that nothing had been done, even though I had kept reminding the person. The result of this effort was that the employee turned in their resignation that day, understanding that they would most likely be terminated otherwise. And it turns out this person had made alternative plans knowing that this really wasn't the right job for them. I didn't have to terminate anyone on this part, so man, that was great, right? I still felt there had to be a better way, even though they had left on their own. So 2 years after that, in a different team, I came across another failing employee. This one had skill, but just couldn't get the job done. This time, I was determined to try not to end the situation with termination, separation, resignation, any of that stuff. But sometimes I will be honest, inevitably, that's as last resort, and sometimes you do have to do that. But in this case, it took me several months, but I was able to find the root cause of the failure by the employee and decided to tackle it and attempt to resolve the problem. So I started off using my newfound SMART goal skills, right? And I addressed the issues directly in our one-on-one. But I still struggled to find a way to help this person. This person was just having some personal problems. I just couldn't fit one of my template approaches to help this person. So I decided that after several approaches, I sat down with this person and asked for their participation to help me help them. And we were able to overcome the issues and successfully find a solution and turn them around. It turned out that this person had difficulty managing priorities. He simply got overwhelmed when multiple tasks were assigned to him that all needed his attention at once. He's what I call an ostrich employee. He got nervous, stuck his head in the sand, and was hoping that everything would work itself out by the time he pulled his head back out. Once I figured this out, I was able to help teach him to evaluate all of his assignments, create a task checklist for each one. And then he realized that by breaking down each assignment, he was able to start working on multiple things on his own each day. So what did I learn out of from all these people? Well, what I learned was that most employees, they don't know that they're failing. I was surprised by this at first, but I noticed that the more I applied my new skills, the more apparent this became that these people didn't know that they were actually failing. No one told them. Everybody knew it. It was like the elephant in the room. Everybody knew this except them. They also don't know how to help themselves. I mean, they wouldn't be in this position if they did, right? And the biggest lesson that I learned is that not everybody's the same. And by that, I mean, not everyone has the same problem that's causing them to be failing. Even the strugglers with the same overarching issues, such as a skill problem or a personal issue, they all seem to be different and unique. So what did I have to do? I had to learn to adapt if I wanted to help them out. And make no mistake about this is a very long process sometimes, being able to troubleshoot the problem and come up with a resolution. You just can't Google it a lot of times. So fixing the problem does not often take as long as identifying a root cause and coming up with a solution. And in the long run, it's less expensive, less time consuming, and less destructive if you don't have to let somebody go. All right, so the rock star. Unfortunately, rock stars are harder to come by than failing employees. They can also be as challenging for a manager as a failing employee. Rock stars are employees that just know what to do and usually have no problem getting the job done. They have higher expectations for themselves than you do usually for them. And some have big ambitions. Others, they just like to do what they do. And some just want to move up as fast as they can in their career. I've lost several rock stars in the past because I did not understand them as well as I should have. Most leave your organization and move on to a place where they are better appreciated for their talent. A few end up turning into failing employees because they are working so hard that they end up burning out. I've also noticed sometimes rock stars have negative effects on a team. Rock stars need even more attention than failing employees a lot of times. They are the ones that are getting the work done for your team. They're the ones that usually take on additional work to help the team. But they're also the ones that are looking for more of a challenge, wanting to do more, and usually eating everyone else's lunch in the process, so to speak. The manager's job is to make sure to not let them burn out. Many rock stars have no problem putting in time. In fact, most of them work harder and longer than the rest of your team, and maybe even yourself, quite frankly. The manager needs to monitor how much effort they are putting in. This is a double-edged sword for the manager because you don't want them to burn out, but on the other hand, you don't want to stop them from getting things done as well. They can also alienate themselves by outperforming the rest of the team. As a manager, you want to get things done efficiently, but also effectively. Many of us assign all of our harder and more important tasks, projects, problems like that to our rock stars. We want to make sure that the work gets done on time and correctly, right? But the problem is you can overload your rock star and cause burnout or discontent. The other problem that I've noticed I had is that the rest of the team may start to see this as favoritism and turn on both you and your rock star. So make sure that you're giving every person on your team a chance to be that rock star. Just like the failing employee, An average employee may not know how to become a rock star. If you work with them and show them how to get there, there's a good chance that you're going to take a garage band player and turn them into a big time stage ready rock star. So let's talk about the average Joe. As a manager, hopefully most of your team is made up of people that fall between struggling and rock star, and I'll tell you why. You may ask, why wouldn't you want all rock stars? Well, failing employees require a manager to spend a lot of time rehabilitating them. Like I said previously, rock stars require special attention to keep them focused and to keep them from burning out. And this can leave a manager very exhausted, even if they have too many rock stars or failing employees on the team. The average Joe employee, they'll usually go about their day and their career doing what is expected of them. There's nothing wrong with this. In fact, it helps to keep your team stable. They help bridge the gap between the failing employees and the rock stars. But that doesn't mean you only focus your time on the failing employees and rock stars. This is also an opportunity to help the rest of your team succeed as well. Failing employees need to get better, and rock stars usually need to be tempered. The rest of the team may need help with personal, career, mission, and vision goals. Take the opportunity to discuss this with you in your one-on-one meetings with them. And I hope all of you do have one-on-one meetings with your team. I include a career development section on our agenda to regularly discuss where they are, where they may want to go, and a direction and a path to help them get there. Your average employee can make or break your team. If they see all of your attention going to those that are failing, or even worse, favoritism to the rock star, they themselves can turn into a failing employee. This is your opportunity to turn them into a rock star, and hopefully they get promoted or a new job somewhere else that will help benefit them. So as a new leader in any company, I always take the time at the beginning to evaluate my organization. I need to know what the culture is, what the expectations are, how the teams are managed within my organization. I also evaluate my teams to see who my leaders are, who my strugglers may be, and who my rock stars are. Team composition refers to the overall mix of characters among people in your team, which is a unit of two or more individuals, right? That interact interdependently to achieve a common objective. It's based on the attributes among individuals that comprise this team, in addition to their main objective. You need to know what type of team you have. Then you need to decide on what type of team that you really want, what works best for your environment and your team. So there's several types of teams that I've identified, and we'll talk a little bit about these. Do you have a team of Olympians? This is the kind of team that trains hard to compete and win. An Olympic team can be made up of people who each play different sports with different rules. They may cheer each other on, but they might not all have the same goals or objectives. They don't all play the same game. Even when they do, they don't always approach the same game the same way. There may be people on your team with totally different jobs, even though they all work for the same manager. An Olympic team is not a bad thing as long as everyone knows what their role is and is able to help the team when needed. Each person can win a gold medal in their respective area as long as they're not sacrificing the team's goals in the process. Do you have a special forces team? This team is a team that trains together, has each other's back, and knows and follows all the rules to the letter. They all have the same mission and work towards the same goal. No person left behind. So take a help desk as an example. I'm the manager, the commander, so to speak. I also have a team lead that's my second in command. They take charge when I'm not around. The rest of my team are usually subject matter experts of sorts. One's a Windows specialist, one's a Mac specialist, one's a Unix specialist, and one's an email specialist. But they all know how to do each other's job when need be if someone else isn't there, even though they have their own specialty. They all have the same mission, to help a customer in need, and they leave no one behind, period, not even a customer. Do you have an A team? This is a group of loosely knit people that loosely follow the rules, but like to get the job done. It could be that they have little regard for policy and proper procedures and standards. They could all care about each other, but not necessarily about authority, aka leadership or management. This team can be effective for the most part, but they tend to cut corners. They tend to do what is right for them more than the customer, especially if they can have fun doing it. And finally, and this is worst of all, do you have the spy versus spy team? This is a group of people that are all on the same team, but they are out to get each other, or at least they're only worrying about individual survival. This often means that they're out to get you as well as their leader. These individuals work hard at making others look bad so that they can look good. If you have one of these teams, you certainly have your work cut out for you. This type of team is very toxic for you, for themselves, and certainly for your organization. And I mention all these different examples because I've worked in environments where I've had each of these types of teams that worked for me, and then the challenge of trying to make them into the right team. So your mission should be to build the best team that you possibly can. And we talked about the 3 basic types of employees that you can have. And it's your job as their leader to help them be the best that they can be so the team can be the best. So I tell my teams that I'm going to hand them a rope to help them build a better career. I'm going to help them, but it's up to them to choose the path they're going to go with this rope. My goal is to help each person build a bridge, so to speak. And I steer them away from making this. Quite frankly, I try to show them that this is a bridge, they can build a bridge to enhance their career. I intentionally use the 3-rope bridge as my analogy because I believe that there are 3 key factors in building a good team. The biggest factor in building a successful team for a leader is trust. A leader must not only trust their team, the team must absolutely trust their leader. Trust is earned by a leader who provides their team with clarity and transparency, guidance and mentorship, and support and backing. A leader who doesn't support their team, someone who takes credit for their work or throws them under the bus when something goes wrong, is never going to have a team that's going to trust them. And without trust, a leader will never be able to build a successful team. To gain trust, people really need to know what you expect from them. And this is true for any type of team, whether professional, personal, or even volunteers. Providing the people on your team with a clear mission, a vision, and goals is essential for them to be successful. It's not only for the team goals, but also for individual goals as well. When leaders are not clear, they leave room for ambiguity and assumption. This leads to confusion and frustration by both the leader and the team. And recently on other teams, I've seen bad performance evaluations are often the result of unclear expectations and goals, especially when people aren't told that they're not doing what is expected. And along with trust and clarity, leaders must also be transparent. No, a leader can't tell their employees everything. Like, I can't tell everybody what each other's salary is or anybody's confidential or personal information or issues. However, when it comes to the mission and vision of the team, the leader needs to be as transparent as possible. Transparency is also a must when managing your team's performance. It's essential to let each person know how they are doing, whether well or badly. Most people have no problem telling someone else that they're doing a great job, but it doesn't do any of you any good if you don't tell them the truth when they are failing or struggling, where they need to step up their game, or they're just flat out doing a bad job. Of course, you need to do this in a constructive and positive way to be successful. Being transparent, though, is a two-way street. And once you are open and honest with your team, you'll find that they'll reciprocate and be honest and professional with you as well. So to build a good team, you need to focus on performance management. And there are many tools available to managers and leaders today that will help with performance management. Software development and cloud technology have really made it a lot easier to help manage and evaluate people. But as a colleague of mine said, technology is an enabler and it's not what makes the process work. So these tools are meant to help you with the process, but they cannot do the work for you. When using a tool for the purpose of performance management, it must fit a need. And as I said in an earlier slide, it has to fit the need of your environment, your culture, your organization. So these are the definitions that my university, and actually my college inside my university has given us. We are a very decentralized university, so all different colleges do different things. This in particular helps people in my organization understand what the expectations are for everyone. It fits the need of being able to calculate a score of 5 different rankings. And the scale is ranked from 5, the rock star, to a 1, that failing employee, and everything in between. We currently use an Excel spreadsheet that is supplied by our Human Resources Department to evaluate individuals. Now, if used properly, it can help people improve their performance by providing them with what's expected of their job. I use this tool with my team to help show them the clarity of what's expected. But the problem is, it doesn't tell people how to become a rock star or how to move up to the next level in their career. It just defines what each level is, not how to get to the next level. So the cloud, from a technical perspective, has come a long way, and there are many applications and delivery methods available to use for collaboration, including for performance management. And most companies use some sort of shared network drive, whether it's Google, Microsoft, Box, Dropbox, the list goes on. Additionally, there are many cloud-based applications that can be used with these collaborative shared storage spaces to make performance management much easier for you and your team. I find using collaborative tools to share this information is key to building a successful team. I have been very effective, it's been very effective for me to use these tools to help my teams, both as a group and individuals, be more successful. Remember I told you that failing employee who panicked about competing priorities? I was able to use real-time cloud-based collaborative tools to help prioritize his work. It turned out that the problem he had was being overwhelmed when too many things hit his plate. I was able to break down each task into a checklist of steps that needed done for each ticket that was assigned to him. And this is that micromanagement part I talked to you about. He actually asked me to help by micromanaging him. This helped him be able to handle multiple tickets while he was waiting for other people to respond and do things on other tickets. And it turns out that today he actually can do this himself by using the tools that we developed together to help him. So I don't have to micromanage him anymore. When I meet with people one-on-one, I always use a basic agenda, and it's available to them all the time. This is the online collaborative tool I'm talking about. And this can be any tool to which you both have access to. Before this cloud-based tool, I used to share documents with them on a shared drive in my organization, the network drive. This way, either of us can add agenda items or prepare ahead of time what the other person wants to discuss. So this here represents the agenda that I've worked out with my team, and this is for individuals, and it's very basic and very flexible in nature, and it's meant to be that way. We have an area for new topics to discuss. I try to always start out with what's on their plate first. Giving them the opportunity to cover their items first makes them feel that this is their meeting, which it is, and that they are valued, which they are. If they did their homework by reviewing the agenda ahead of time, they usually address my items for me, and I don't even have to talk about them as the initiator. We usually discuss any concerns they have, projects they're involved with, and what blockers are causing tasks to be delayed. Most importantly, we discuss how they're doing themselves, aside from just the work they're doing. We review the things in their yearly evaluation on a regular basis, whether every meeting or at a minimum once per quarter. But as you notice, there's a section on here for career development, and that's usually where we cover that. No one on my teams are surprised come performance evaluation time. They all know well ahead of time how they're doing. Mind you, they may not always like the rating they're going to get in a given category on their performance evaluation, maybe not even the overall rating, but they know ahead of time what to expect well before the day that they get that evaluation. So building a strong team starts like a structure. You need to start with a strong foundation. Hiring, developing, and coaching individuals, it's a start to building a great team. Managers will find that they need to start by instilling trust with these individuals in order to have open and honest dialogue. And moving from there, providing transparency and clarity will help them build a solid relationship that allows for growth for the employee, the team, and the organization. And a manager needs to treat them like a person, not a resource. Remember, you don't want to be that man a jerk. You want to be the leader. And yes, eventually they may grow up and develop skills and leave your organization, leave your team. That's a sign of successful performance management. Don't be upset by that. So to summarize, know your leadership style and learn how to enhance it with skills and techniques from others. Adapt to situations and employees and be willing to change your methods, your processes, and your techniques. Learn to identify who your rock stars are, who your average Joes are, and who your strugglers are. And instill trust clarity, and transparency into your everyday interaction with your team. Don't wait until the end of the year, whenever that is for your organization, to fill out yearly evaluations. Make it a routine part of the process when you meet with people on your team. Use performance plans as a positive. I don't call mine performance improvement plans anymore. I call them performance plans or performance enhancement plans to make sure that it's on a positive note. Have regular one-on-one meetings so you know what is going on, what people's frustrations are, what their career goals are. And use collaborative tools to help your team know how they're doing, what your expectations are of them, and what their career goals are. So at this time, I take any questions or anybody's input.
Okay, so there are some questions coming in. The first one is from Christine. She wonders, how often do you do one-on-ones with each team member, and how long is each meeting?
That is a great question. So I've done some research on the one-on-one meetings, and there are I was given two general guidelines through this research, and one is to have a one-on-one meeting for 30 minutes a person every week, or 1 hour every other week. I have chosen, because I have 12 individuals that report to me, I do 1 hour every other week so that I don't strangle my calendar, as well as tie them up a lot. So either half an hour a week, 1 hour every other week. I would recommend not doing it any less than every other week to make it effective. Does that answer that question?
Yes. How do you cultivate the trust that is needed for the last comment, getting to understand the frustrations of the employees?
So yeah, I do this a lot through the one-on-one meetings, and we talk a lot about. I try to share some examples of things that happened throughout my career, and this is something that I work. It takes a long time. Not a long time. It takes me a while to develop that with each individual person. Once I get them to start telling me things, I show them I don't go and tell everybody else, or I will work with them to help them in their career. I let them know that if they have a problem, one of the biggest things that I do is I try to ask them, hey, if something's bothering you, or somebody's a problem, let me know. And I never go to a person and say, well, Joe told me that you're really irritating him. I go to those individuals and I try to work it out with them as I observe the situation. So I try to build trust with my folks in the one-on-one setting through helping them out with problems and issues. And if they have one of the big things is I try to approach things directly with my folks. As I said, I do it professionally and not mean or anything, but I will point things out to them, and I will show them that I'm not out to get them. I don't demote them. I don't write them up for any bad behavior. We put together a plan, and we meet every other week to try to improve the situation. So building the trust for me is showing them that I care about them and that I'm not out to get them.
Mm-hmm. Excuse me, we had a comment from someone about one-on-ones that says, wow, our supervisor does 1 hour every 6 months.
Yeah, I understand that, we're all busy, but I really, and to go along with the once every 2 weeks that I meet an hour once every 2 weeks, I also try to I try to minimize canceling those meetings, or even if I have to, I will reschedule a meeting, but I absolutely try not to cancel a one-on-one meeting with my folks, because I feel that it's their time. I know my boss meets with me every other week for an hour, and I really, really miss if they get canceled. Mm-hmm. I feel it's my opportunity to share what's going on in my world with them.
When it comes to SMART goals, what are different ways or tools to help with the measurement piece?
Yeah, so it depends on what your SMART goals are. In some of the cases where I said people just needed to get better, a lot of the times I had to work on their skills, and so I would in some cases I would tell them they had to do some training, and I would outline that training for them. basically how I measured the outcome, it depended on what it was. Is in the one-on-one meetings, I would set the SMART goal to say the measurable thing is you have to be able to handle so many types of tickets, or you need to take classes or job shadowing and report back to me, and we discuss what they've learned or what they've done in our one-on-one meeting. Some of the stuff that I've done with my folks, unfortunately, is not ticket measurable. It's not metrics measurable sometimes, because I'm being assigned a lot of employees that are struggling in non-technical ways.
Mm-hmm. Nina wonders, what if the trust question is not someone who reports to you, but with one of your direct reports staff?
Yeah, so I have had that arise, and again, the trust issue is I don't go to their manager, their supervisor, and tell on them. I try to guide this person on what I would tell my employees to do if they were working with me. And if I do notice that it's something really, really going down the wrong path, which I have recently, I actually do it. What I tell my folks I do is I like to observe the situation by not telling the other person that I know about it. And I'll usually catch that manager or that other person in the act of doing whatever's upsetting that employee, and I will pull them aside and say, I noticed this. I notice you're not handling the situation. It kind of seemed like that person was upset, and sit down and have a one-on-one with that person.
Mm-hmm.
The point for the trust thing with me is to not go and throw any of the people under the bus that are coming to me with a problem, directly with somebody else.
Sure. Nick wonders, what format do you use for your one-to-one meetings? Do you take notes? And how do you organize your notes to have a complete picture when you write evaluations?
So the actual screenshot I showed you was of the tool that I use, and what this tool does is it has individual cards on it for each topic. And so I do take notes during the meeting. My employee also takes notes during the meeting. And the nice part about this is the tool that we use, when the employee when one of my staff put the notes in, I can't change it. It's time and date stamps it, and I can't change that. And I put mine in as well. The other thing it does is where we can email into it. So if somebody sends me a kudo for my employee, I'll email it to their agenda, their one-on-one agenda, and it keeps it there for the year. So I compartmentalize each of those things so that I can go back and look at them at the end of the year. And actually, we have to do ours twice a year, our evaluations. And so I just categorize each of the cards. And one of the ways that I do it for the evaluation is I have that, I said I had that career development card. Let me see if I can go back real quick. I have a career development card for them where it doesn't show it on here, but one of the things on there, oh no, it does, it's on my items. It says yearly evaluation. If I click on that card, it'll take me to their yearly evaluation where I can make comments on each individual category any time of the year, and that's what we do. And so I do that. I do take notes during the meeting, before the meeting, after the meeting, and anything that I put in there, the employee gets the notification that I entered an update.
Neat. Any recommendations on how to work with remote employees?
That one I have not had as much experience. I did have one of the government opportunities that I had that, and basically I kind of do the same thing with them. I can't manage them, like follow them around day to day. That's a little tougher, but I basically do the same thing with in that situation I ran one-on-one meetings every other week with each one of them. I guess in my opinion, you'll get a sense from the people they work with or the customer that they're at if they're not doing their job, and that's kind of a soft skill issue that you have to deal with. It's not something you're going to be able to see, but I still handle the same way I do the one-on-one. And this is kind of one of the reasons I came up with these collaborative tools, was because of that situation where I couldn't just email them. Emailing was just not as effective, and I couldn't just walk up to their desk and drop something off. So we came up with this kind of a one-on-one agenda.
Anybody else? We have time for one or two more questions. How do you inspire a rock star?
How do I inspire a rock star? So the current ones that I have, basically I sit down with them and I ask them what they want to do, where they want to go, what they want to be. And actually in the situation where I'm at right now at Carnegie Mellon, I've actually taken 3 of those and put them into positions that didn't exist, but we had a need for. And so I inspire them by taking on some of that, showing us their talent and how we could use it, and that's what happened. The folks I was sharing with Lori before this started, that my organization, sometimes they're very skeptical about things and skeptical about knowing that we needed, for example, a project manager or a technical writer. We didn't have any of those when I started, and I had people that kind of were excited about, they excelled at their, and most of these people came out of my help desk, and they were very excited, they were very talented, and so I took them and I assigned them to projects outside of the regular scope of their job, to give them an opportunity to test that desire of where they wanted to go. And it turned out that I had one person that was really well at documenting tickets. Turned out he was really, really good at technical writing, and we promoted him into that position. One person went from help desk lead to project manager because of this kind of thing. So I work with them to develop what they think they like to do and give them an opportunity to try it in our environment. Even if we don't have a position for them, or it doesn't turn out to be something like this, at least they get the opportunity to see if they might like that.
How about team building activities? What team building activities do you find most effective?
So currently, I've been playing around with that a little bit. Currently, what I'm doing is I'm doing a lot of strategy planning for my team for looking down the road for the future. And so what I'm doing is I'm bringing them all together, and we talk about things, decisions that maybe normally a manager would make. And I have them, to get their buy-in, I ask them what their opinions are, what they'd like to see, and what they would like to do. And we do this collaboratively in an environment. And I promote disagreement. It has to be professional. There's no bad behavior involved, but I let them know very candidly that I don't want to hear people tell me what I want to hear, because that doesn't do anybody any good. So I bring them all in together, and we work on things as a team, strategy, forward planning, things like that. We do it as I get everybody involved.
Okay. One more follow-up question about trust. What if the trust is not about another person, but in general? Basically, they believe there's an employee with trust issues in the whole unit. And how do you solve a trust within the unit?
Yeah, so if it's in my unit, I start developing ways to, first of all, I will sit down and try talking to them directly to see if this is true. I really try to take a head-on approach to a lot of these things. And if it's not in my unit and not in my organization, I tend to take it to my leadership to talk about, maybe not specifically telling who the person is at first, but at least talking about, listen, I think we have a problem here, and we need to address it, but not addressing it. Because here's the reality of it is, we talk about perception is reality. Their perception is their reality, and it could be toxic or just negative to them and how they interact with the rest of the group. So I try to handle things direct and try to come up with a solution or an approach to handle that situation. And I have run across that. And in my organization, we have a lot of those. There's people that just don't trust leadership, for example. They really don't trust leadership. They actually think we're out to get them. Yeah. And one of the ways that we handle it, that I chose to handle it, is that I try to bring those people in to the behind the scenes behavior. Like, that's that transparency part, where I let them see what goes on behind the curtain, and that there's no great Oz that's, pulling strings and chords and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, Tom, we did it. We filled a great hour. Thank you so much for sharing with us your expertise and your experience. I know I always enjoy talking to you about these. We did have a few questions that we ran out of time for. Tom, I'm sure people would love to know where to find you. Is one of those places the SIGUCCS Slack?
Yes, I am on SIGUCCS Slack a lot, and that's probably the best place to catch me.
Okay.
Although email is just fine too, but the Slack channel, as you know, I try to.
Be active there.
Yeah, yep. I'm not big on social media, meaning I just don't get a chance to go out a lot, but I love Slack.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for participating today. A wonderful group, lively questions. The recording will be available next week. Thanks again, Tom.
Thank you so much.
Goodbye,
Have a great day.
everyone.